A Werewolf Shifter Romance, written by Madeline Carter. Chapter 1. Rejected at her fated mate's wedding. Nora Hale never belonged in the Great Hall. She only worked in it. She carried trays, cleaned spilled wine before anyone important had to notice, and fixed torn ribbons with hands that were always sore. Because in Greymore territory, an Omega didn't get a place, an Omega got a purpose, and tonight, her purpose was to stay invisible. While the pack celebrated the wedding of their Alpha Dorian Blackwell, the future of Greymore, the wolf everyone followed without question. Nora told herself it was just another shift, just another night where she kept her head down and her mouth shut. But the moment she stepped into the torchlit hall, something inside her tightened. Not nerves, not heat, not fear. A pull. Deep, sharp, unavoidable. It had been building for days, growing stronger every time Dorian's scent drifted across the territory, every time his voice carried through the stone corridors, every time she passed too close and felt her body react before her mind could stop. Nora's wolf had always been quiet. Too quiet. That was what they said. That was what they used against her. Weak wolf. Weak Omega broken. But tonight, her wolf stirred, like it had been waiting. Nora moved along the edges of the crowd, careful not to draw attention. Nobles and betas laughed, drank, and filled the hall with ceremonial black and silver. At the front, the elders spoke in low voices, preparing for the vows. Dorian stood near the platform, tall and perfectly still, wearing a black cloak clasped at his throat with polished silver. He looked like a man born to rule, and the bond inside Nora snapped, tight, so tight it stole her breath. It was him. Her fated mate. The realization hit like cold water, impossible, cruel, because Dorian wasn't marrying her. He was marrying Lady Maris Vane, high-ranked, chosen for alliances, elegant and flawless at his side, smiling as if she already wore the Luna title. Nora forced her eyes down. It couldn't be real. Fate wouldn't choose an Omega who spent her nights scrubbing floors. Then the drums changed, the hall quieted. The ritual began. Old words filled the air, shaping pack law, binding the future. Nora's pulse hammered as she waited for the moment every wolf knew. The recognition, the pause in the vows. When an alpha's instincts were supposed to find his destined mate, even if she stood in shadow. Dorian's head turned. His gaze swept across the crowd. And for one heartbeat, it landed on Nora. The bond flared violently. Her knees almost gave out. He felt it. She knew he felt it. For one fragile second, she believed he would step away from Maris. Then Dorian's eyes hardened. Not confusion. Decision. He turned away, took Maris's hand, and continued the ceremony as if Nora didn't exist. The rejection wasn't spoken. It didn't need to be. It was absolute. Heat burned behind Nora's eyes, but she forced her face blank, forced her breathing steady, and stepped back into the shadows. Whispers began almost immediately, soft and poisonous. She slipped into a side corridor until a hand grabbed her wrist. A young beta woman, close to Maris, smiling sweetly. "Where are you going, Omega?" Nora pulled free. "I'm working." The woman leaned closer. "No, you stay. So you can watch. So you can remember your place." Nora didn't answer. She walked away. Anyway, only when she reached the empty corridor did her hands begin to shake. She leaned against the stone wall, trying to breathe. Trying to understand how fate could be so brutal. Then she felt it. Not Dorian, another presence. An alpha's presence. Nora lifted her head. At the far end of the corridor, half hidden in shadow. A stranger stood watching her. Not a gray werewolf, no crest, no markings, just travel leather. Relaxed posture. Sharp dark eyes. He didn't look at her with pity. He looked at her with interest. Like he had just seen an opening, and for the first time in her life. Nora's wolf didn't feel weak. It felt ready. Chapter 2: The Stranger in the Corridor. Nora should have walked away. That was the instinct she'd trained into her bones. Don't look at trouble. Don't speak to power. Don't give anyone a reason to notice you. But the stranger's presence filled the corridor like cold air seeping through stone, and Nora realized she was already noticed. He didn't move at first, he just watched her. Tall, broad shoulders under dark travel leather. No Greymoor crest, no ceremonial silver, no scent of wine and celebration. He smelled like the forest after rain, sharp and clean, with something darker beneath it. Danger. Nora forced her voice to stay steady. You're not supposed to be back here. The man's mouth curved slightly. Not kind, not cruel, just amused. Neither are you. Nora's jaw tightened. I'm staff. I can be anywhere. He tilted his head. And yet you ran. Nora's throat tightened. She hated that he was right. She hated that anyone had seen it. I didn't run, she said. I stepped out. The man took one slow step forward. Nora's wolf stirred. Not fear, warning. The stranger stopped again, as if he'd felt her tension and respected it, which was unsettling in its own way. I saw what happened, he said. Nora's stomach twisted. You shouldn't be watching. I wasn't watching you, he replied. I was watching your alpha. Nora's eyes narrowed. That's worse. His gaze stayed on hers, calm and steady. Your alpha made a decision tonight, he said. And decisions like that have consequences. Nora swallowed. You don't know what you're talking about. The stranger's expression sharpened. I do. He spoke the next word like a blade sliding free. The bond. Nora went still. Her blood turned cold. You felt that. I felt him feel it, the man said. I watched him recognize you. Nora's chest tightened, anger rising fast because it was easier than shame. You're imagining things. I'm not. His voice stayed controlled, and that control scared her more than shouting would have. Nora forced herself to breathe. If you saw anything, she said, then you saw he rejected it. The stranger's eyes darkened. Yes. Nora swallowed hard. Then it's done. The stranger stepped closer again, slow enough that Nora could have backed away. She didn't. His gaze dropped briefly to her wrist, where the red mark still showed from the beta's grip. Then he looked back into her eyes. That mark, he said quietly. That's your future in Greymoor. Nora's throat tightened. I can handle Greymoor. The stranger's mouth twitched. No, he said. You've survived Greymoor. He let the words sit. And survival isn't the same as living. Nora hated how much that landed. Hated how her wolf seemed to agree, pressing against her ribs like it wanted to step forward for the first time. What do you want? Nora asked, because this was the only question that mattered. The stranger's gaze flicked toward the hall, toward the muffled sound of the ceremony still happening. Your alpha thinks rejecting you makes you disappear, the man said. It doesn't. Nora's pulse hammered. You're enjoying this. I'm recognizing an opportunity, he corrected. Nora narrowed her eyes. An opportunity for what? The stranger's voice lowered. For you. Nora stared. No one ever said things like that to Omegas. They didn't offer futures. They offered tasks, orders, rules. The man finally moved fully into the torchlight, and Nora saw his face clearly. Dark hair, cut short, a scar through his eyebrow, Eyes like storm clouds, not pretty, not gentle, built for war. My name is Rafe, he said. Alpha Rafe Kane. The name hit Nora like a rumor whispered by guards. Kane, not a Greymore family. Not even close. A border pack name. The kind Greymore elders used when they wanted to scare young wolves into obedience. Nora kept her spine straight. Your arrival. Rafe's mouth curved again. Yes. Nora's voice stayed hard. So you're here to cause trouble. Rafe's eyes narrowed slightly. I'm here because Greymore is expanding, taking land that doesn't belong to them. And because your alpha thinks he can do anything he wants without paying for it. Nora's stomach twisted. Why do you care what Dorian does? Rafe stepped closer. And this time the air felt heavier, like a storm about to break. Because when a king shows weakness, Rafe said quietly, wolves circle. Nora's pulse jumped. You're saying he's weak. Rafe's gaze didn't move. I'm saying he's arrogant. And arrogance makes men careless. Nora's throat tightened. She glanced toward the hall again, as if she could still feel Dorian's presence even through stone. Even if the bond is real, she whispered, it doesn't matter. Rafe's voice cut in, sharp. It matters. He leaned in slightly, stopping just short of her space. A true bond rejected in front of witnesses becomes a fracture. It destabilizes your pack. It creates hunger. And it creates targets. Nora's blood went cold. Targets. Rafe's gaze flicked down the corridor, then back. You, he said simply. Nora's stomach dropped. She wanted to deny it. She wanted to call him a liar. But she remembered the smiles in the hall. The way Celine's women looked at her. The way the guards would obey Dorian's orders no matter what they were. Nora forced her voice to hold. What are you offering? Rafe held her gaze, and for the first time something in his expression softened just enough to be real. A choice. Nora almost laughed. It would have sounded broken. Choices aren't real for Omegas. Rafe's jaw tightened. They can be. He gestured with his chin toward the far end of the corridor. There's a service gate on the east side. 2 guards. They'll be distracted in a few minutes. Nora's heart slammed. You planned this. Rafe didn't deny it. I watched the ceremony. I watched the moment he rejected you. And I decided you weren't going to be left here to be torn apart. Nora swallowed. Her voice came out small. Why? Rafe's eyes darkened. Because I hate watching wolves waste what fate gives them. Nora's chest tightened. That sounds like mercy. It's not mercy, Rafe said. It's interest. The honesty hit harder than any sweet lie. Nora's wolf stirred again, restless and alert, like it could smell the edge of a new life. Rafe held out his hand. Not grabbing, not forcing. Offering. Come with me, he said. Tonight. Nora stared at his hand. If she took it, there was no going back. Graymo, I would call it betrayal. Dorian would call it theft. Nora's breath shook. And if I don't? Rafe's expression went colder. Then you stay. And tomorrow, you become a lesson. Nora pictured the hall again. Dorian's eyes turning away, the whispers, the red mark on her wrist. She closed her eyes for one heartbeat, then opened them. How? She asked. Rafe turned slightly, listening. Then, from the hall, a loud crash echoed, shouts, confusion. The music cut off mid-note. Rafe looked back at Nora. Now, he said. Nora's heart slammed. What did you do? Rafe didn't answer. He just took her wrist gently, guiding her forward. Move like you belong, he said. Nora didn't feel like she belonged anywhere, but she moved anyway. Down the corridor, past storage doors, past empty alcoves, toward the east gate. Voices rose behind them. More shouting. A command barked by someone important. The guards near the service gate turned their heads. Distracted, Nora didn't hesitate. She pushed through the gate. Cold night air hit her face. She stepped outside, and the moment her boots touched the grass beyond Greymoor's walls, something in her chest loosened. Not the bond, but the weight. The years of being told she was nothing. A shadow waited near the tree line. Rafe. He watched her like he'd never doubted she would come. Nora walked toward him, each step taking her farther from the life that had rejected her. Rafe didn't speak until she was close. "Good," he said. And then, behind them, a howl tore through the night, not celebratory, not ceremonial. A hunting howl. Nora's blood turned to ice. Rafe's eyes lifted, sharp. "They noticed," Nora whispered. Rafe's mouth curved slightly. "Let them." He reached for her hand again, offering. Nora hesitated for a single heartbeat. Then she took it, and they ran into the forest, while Greymoor's hunting howls multiplied behind them like a storm. Chapter 3: Run or be claimed. The forest closed around them fast. Branches swallowed the moonlight, and the ground turned uneven beneath Nora's boots. Roots and stones waiting to trip her if she slowed even for a second. Rafe didn't slow. He moved like the land belonged to him, pulling her along just enough to keep her close, without dragging her off balance. Behind them, the howls rose again, closer this time. Greymoor had noticed. Nora's breath burned in her chest. The fear pushed her faster. Then her legs wanted to go. "They're hunting," she whispered. Rafe didn't look back. Yes, the word wasn't panicked, it wasn't rushed, it was certain. Nora swallowed. "For me. For what you represent," Rafe corrected. "You're not prey. You're a problem." That didn't make her feel better. They cut sharply downhill, the air growing colder, wetter. A narrow stream appeared ahead, water rushing loud over dark stones. Rafe pulled her straight into it. The cold bit hard, stealing her breath. "Keep moving," he said. They walked downstream, water soaking her boots, numbing her feet, until Rafe hauled her back onto the bank. He shoved wet earth over the stones behind them. "Scent," he said. "It buys us time." Nora nodded, too focused on breathing to argue. They ran again, deeper, higher. The forest growing wilder with every step. The pack lands were behind them now. This was border territory, unclaimed, dangerous. The howls changed. Not as coordinated, confused. Nora stumbled once, catching herself on a tree, pain flaring in her palm. Blood smeared the bark. Rafe stopped instantly. He grabbed her wrist, inspecting the cut, his jaw tightening. "You're bleeding." "I'm fine," Nora said quickly. Rafe tore a strip of cloth from his sleeve and wrapped her hand without ceremony. "Don't bleed for them," he said. "They don't deserve it." The words landed harder than she expected. They moved again, slower now, more careful. Rafe listened constantly, head tilted, senses stretched. Finally, he led her into a narrow cleft between rocks, hidden by thick brush and shadow. They stopped. The forest breathed around them. The howls faded, drifting farther apart. Nora sagged against the stone, legs shaking. "I can't do that again," she whispered. Rafe turned to face her fully for the first time since they ran. "Yes, you can." Nora laughed once, breathless and bitter. "You overestimate me." Rafe shook his head. "You underestimate yourself." She looked away. "I've spent my whole life being told what I am. And tonight," Rafe said quietly, "you saw what happens when you accept it." Nora's chest tightened. The memory of Dorian's eyes turning away burned fresh. Rafe stepped closer, not crowding her, but close enough that she could feel his presence like a shield. You don't belong on your knees, he said. And you don't belong waiting for someone who already chose against you. Nora's throat tightened. You make it sound simple. It's not, Rafe said. But it's necessary. She studied his face. The scars, the calm control, the danger he didn't bother hiding. What happens now? She asked. Rafe's gaze flicked toward the dark trees. Now we don't stop moving until sunrise. And after that, he said, Graymore becomes someone else's problem. Nora hesitated. And me? Rafe met her eyes. You become mine to protect. The word mine sent a shiver down her spine. That sounds like another cage. Rafe's voice dropped. Only if you choose to stay in it. Silence stretched between them. Then, faint but unmistakable, a deeper howl rolled through the forest. Not frantic, not searching, commanding, nor a single quote says. Blood turned cold. That's Dorian, she whispered. Rafe's expression hardened. Yes, Nora's heart pounded. He won't stop. No, Rafe agreed. He won't. He stepped closer. Close enough now that the air between them felt charged. Listen to me, he said. If he catches us before we reach Blackridge Land, he will claim you by force. Nora stiffened. He rejected me. Rafe's eyes burned. Rejection doesn't erase possession from a man like him. Nora's wolf surged, fear and anger twisting together. What do I do? She asked. Rafe held her gaze, unwavering. You choose, he said, then, slowly, deliberately. He lowered his head just enough that his voice brushed her ear. If I mark you, he continued, Dorian cannot touch you without declaring war. Nora's breath caught. And if you don't, Rafe pulled back just enough to look at her. Then you stay unclaimed, he said. And, hunted. The forest felt suddenly too quiet. Nora's mind raced. Chains or blood? Submission or defiance? Dorian's rejection burned in her chest like a wound that refused to close. She lifted her chin. If you mark me, she said, voice shaking but steady, it's not ownership. Rafe's eyes narrowed. Then what is it? A choice, Nora said. Mine. For a long moment, Rafe just studied her, then, slowly, he nodded, double quotes good, he said. That's the only kind that lasts. Another howl echoed. Closer now. Rafe stepped in front of her, shielding her with his body. Decision time. Nora hail. Her heart hammered. She closed her eyes for half a second, then opened them. I won't run anymore, she said. Rafe's gaze darkened, sharp and fierce. Then stand with me. And in the forest between packs, with hunters closing in and fate pressing hard against her spine, Nora realized this was the first moment of her life where she wasn't being chosen. She was choosing. Chapter 4. Marked in the wild. The next howl came closer, so close Nora felt it in her teeth. Rafe's head turned slightly as he listened, his entire body going still in that predatory way only an alpha could manage, as if he could map every sound in the dark without moving at all. Nora's pulse hammered. She could smell them now, Graymo, the sharp familiar scent of wolves raised under Dorian's rule. And underneath it, him, the alpha Dorian Blackwell. His presence pushed through the forest like a storm front. Nora's wolf surged, not quiet anymore, pressing hard against her ribs like it wanted to claw its way out. Rafe looked at her. Once I do this, he said, voice low, there's no pretending it didn't happen. Nora swallowed. I'm not pretending anything anymore. Rafe held her gaze for one more heartbeat. Then he moved. He stepped in close, one hand lifting to the back of her neck, fingers threading into her hair to tilt her head just slightly. Not rough, not gentle, controlled. Nora's breath caught. The bond with Dorian pulsed, angry and sickening, as if it sensed what was coming and fought against it. Nora forced herself to breathe through it, in, out. Rafe's gaze dropped to her throat. That will hurt, he warned. I know, Nora whispered. Rafe leaned in. Nora felt the heat of him, the steady strength, the dangerous calm. Then his mouth touched her skin. For a second, it wasn't pain, Dad, it was a shock of warmth, a pressure that made her wolf lift its head and bare teeth. And then his teeth sank in, sharp, deep, a clean bite. Right where her scent glands pulsed under skin. Nora gasped, pain flashing white behind her eyes. But she didn't pull away. She didn't flinch back into submission. She leaned into it, choosing it. Rafe's grip tightened briefly, steadying her, and the pain twisted into something else. Something hot and electric that shot through her chest and down her spine. The mark burned, then it pulsed. A heavy thrum that wasn't the bond, it was territory, protection, a line drawn in blood. Rafe pulled back. His eyes were darker now. Not animal, not human. Alpha of a thin line of blood stained his lips. Nora's hand flew to her throat. The skin throbbed. Her wolf pushed forward like it finally had room to breathe. Rafe watched her closely. You're still standing, he murmured in Nora's single quotes as breath shook. Don't sound surprised. Rafe's mouth twitched, and for a moment it almost looked like pride. He leaned in again, slower this time, and pressed his forehead to hers. The contact grounded her. Through the bond they didn't share, Nora still felt something. Not magic, not fate. A simple truth. Rafe was here. Rafe wasn't leaving. Then the forest exploded with sound, a crash through brush, a sharp barked command, and a scent that hit Nora like a blade. Dorian was close. Rafe straightened instantly. Stay behind me, he said. Nora's fingers curled. No. Rafe's head snapped toward her. Nora's voice came out low. If I'm marked, I'm not hiding. For a heartbeat. Silence. Then Rafe nodded once. Fine, he said. But you do what I say. The brush ahead parted. Two wolves appeared first, betas, Graymo, or they stopped when they saw Rafe, their eyes widening. Then they saw Nora, and their expressions changed in shock, then anger, then something like satisfaction. One of them shifted halfway, bones cracking under skin. Alpha Dorian said, bring her back. The beta snarled. Rafe's voice stayed calm. She doesn't belong to Graymore. The beta's lip curled. She's his mate. Nora's stomach twisted. Rafe's gaze turned lethal. She was, he corrected. She was rejected. The beta hesitated, not because he cared about truth, because he could feel Rafe's power, because the mark on Nora's throat carried weight. The second beta sniffed the air, his eyes widened. What is that scent? Rafe didn't answer. He didn't have to. The mark answered for him. The beta's face twisted. Blackridge. He spat. The first beta took a step back. This is war. Rafe's voice dropped, cold and certain. No, he said. This is consequence. A deeper presence rolled into the clearing. The air thickened. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Dorian appeared between the trees. Not in wolf form, Human, tall, broad, ceremonial cloak discarded. Shirt open at the throat, as if he'd shifted to fast to care about anything except the chase. His amber eyes locked on Nora instantly, and the rejected bond inside her responded like a wound being pressed. Pain flared in her chest, a tug that tried to drag her forward. Nora's hands shook, not from longing, from fury. Dorian's gaze swept down to her throat, into the fresh bite, into the blood. His face changed. The calm mask shattered. Something raw showed underneath: rage, possession, disbelief. You. Dorian said one word, but it landed like a command. Nora forced herself not to move. Rafe stepped slightly in front of her. You're on unclaimed land. Blackwell, Rafe said. Dorian didn't look at him. His eyes stayed on Nora. You left my territory, Dorian said. Nora's voice came out steady, even when her chest burned. I left your cage. Dorian's jaw flexed. You don't speak to me like that. Nora laughed once, sharp and bitter. You rejected me in front of your entire pack. Dorian's eyes flashed. That was necessary. The word made Nora's stomach churn. Necessary, like she was a problem to manage, a mistake to erase. Rafe's voice cut in. She's marked. Now Dorian finally looked at Rafe slowly, like he was seeing him for the first time. Then Dorian smiled. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't amused. It was dangerous. You think a bite stops destiny? Dorian asked. Rafe's expression didn't change. I think it stops your hands. Dorian's gaze snapped back to Nora. You're coming with me. Nora lifted her chin. No. For a moment, the forest went dead quiet. Even the betas froze. Dorian stared at her, like he couldn't process the refusal. Then his scent spiked. Eminence, a command, the kind that made weaker wolves drop. Automatically, Nora's knees threatened to buckle. Her wolf trembled, but it didn't submit. It dug in. Nora forced her voice through the pressure. You don't get to reject me, she said, and then hunt me like property. Dorian took a step forward. Rafe moved with him, mirroring, blocking. Dorian's eyes narrowed. This is between me and her. Rafe's voice was a low growl. No, it's between you and Blackridge now. Dorian's jaw clenched. And you think your pack will protect an Amiga against Greymore? Rafe's eyes flashed. Not an Amiga, he said. A female under my protection. Dorian's gaze turned sharp. Protection, he repeated. And what do you get in return, Kane? Rafe didn't flinch. Her choice. Dorian's smile turned uglier. He looked at Nora again. Is that what this is? He asked. A tantrum? Nora's throat burned around the mark. She raised her hand and touched it, feeling the pulse under her fingers. Then she looked Dorian dead in the eyes. This, Nora said, is me finally deciding I'm not dying in your shadow. Dorian's face hardened. For a heartbeat, Nora thought he would shift, that he would attack, that the clearing would turn into blood. Instead, Dorian's gaze dropped again, slow and deliberate, to her throat, then back to her eyes, and his voice lowered. You have no idea what you just invited. Nora didn't blink. Then explain it, she said. Dorian's mouth curved faintly. A cruel thing. You think I chased you because I want you back, he said. I chased you because a rejected bond doesn't stay quiet forever. Nora's chest tightened. Rafe's body TNSED. Dorian continued, calm now, like he was delivering a lesson. If you don't return, Dorian said, the bond will turn on you. It will rot inside your chest. It will weaken your wolf. It will make you sick. And when you finally break, he added softly, you'll crawl back anyway. Nora's blood went cold. Rafe's voice cut like steel. Liar. Dorian looked at him. Ask your elders. Dorian said. Ask anyone who's seen a true bond rejected. He looked back at Nora, eyes bright with something that felt like certainty. It's not mercy that brings you home, he said. It's pain. Nora's breath hitched, her wolf trembled. Because a part of her feared he was telling the truth. Rafe took Nora's hand, grounding her, then he lifted his chin and spoke, loud enough for the betas to hear. Then we'll do what your pack never did, Rafe said. We'll handle it properly. Dorian's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? Rafe's voice was calm, brutal. It means, he said, I claim her publicly. The words hit the clearing like thunder. Nora's breath stopped. Dorian went still. The betas froze, and for the first time since the wedding, Nora felt the world shift. Because a public claim wasn't a threat, it was a declaration of war. Rafe turned his head slightly toward Nora, voice low enough only she could hear. This is your last chance to say no. Nora's heart hammered. The forest waited, Graymoo waited. Dorian waited, and Nora realized the choice in front of her was bigger than escape. It was identity, it was belonging, it was power. Nora swallowed. Then she looked at Rafe and nodded. Chapter 5. Claimed before the hunt. Nora's nod was small, but it changed everything. Rafe didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He turned to face Dorian fully, shoulders squared, calm as stone, as if he'd been waiting years for this moment. You want a public claim, Dorian said, voice low. Do it. The betas behind him shifted uneasily. They could smell what this meant. A claim wasn't a bite in the dark. A claim was law. Witnessed. Binding. A line drawn so deep it couldn't be erased without blood. Rafe lifted Nora's hand slowly and brought it to the center of his chest, pressing her palm against his heartbeat. Feel that, he said, quietly. Nora's fingers trembled. His heart was steady, unshaken, like he wasn't standing in front of an enemy alpha, like he was standing in front of fate. Nora swallowed. Her rejected bond with Dorian pulsed again, sharp and sickening, tugging inside her chest like a hooked chain. Rafe watched her carefully. Look at me, he said. Nora lifted her gaze. Rafe's eyes held hers. Storm dark. Certain, double quotes, no one speaks for you, he said. No one decides for you. I won't claim you unless you choose it. Nora's throat tightened. Across the clearing, Dorian's scent rose, dominance thickening the air as if he could force her to obey by sheer will. Nora's knees threatened to buckle. Her wolf trembled. But it didn't submit, it held on. Because she wasn't a child in Graymore halls anymore. She was standing in the wild, and she had already left. Nora's voice came out quiet but clear. I choose it. Rafe's jaw flexed once. Then he turned and spoke so every wolf could hear. Nora Hale, he said. Repeat after me. Nora's breath shook. But she did. Nora Hale, she said, voice cutting through the cold air. Rafe's gaze never left her. Choose Alpha Rafe Kane of Blackridge, he said. Nora's chest tightened, and she forced the words out anyway. I choose Alpha Rafe Kane of Blackridge. Rafe continued, calm and deliberate. By my will. By my voice. By my blood. Nora repeated each phrase, slower, steadier as she spoke them. By my will. By my voice. By my blood. The forest seemed to listen. Even the wind felt still. Rafe lifted her hand from his chest and pressed his thumb into her palm. hard enough that she felt the sting. A sharp slice of pain. Warm blood WLLED, Nora gasped. Rafe didn't apologize. He held her bleeding palm up between them. Witness, he said, looking directly at Dorian and the betas. Then Rafe dragged the edge of his own knife across his thumb. Blood beaded instantly. He pressed his thumb to Nora's palm. Their blood met. Heat surged. Not the mate bond, something else. A binding. A pack claim older than territory lines. Nora's wolf surged forward, so hard it made her gasp again, and for one terrifying moment she thought she might shift. She didn't, but she felt it. Felt claws under skin. Felt teeth in her gums. Felt a strength that had never been there before. Rafe's voice lowered. Now, he said. He stepped close, lifted Nora's chin, exposing the mark on her throat. Nora's pulse spiked. Dorian's eyes locked on her neck. Rafe tilted his head slightly. Last chance, he murmured. Nora met his gaze. No. Rafe's mouth touched the bite. Not biting again. Just pressing and sealing. His scent rolled over her like a cloak, pushing into the fresh wound, riding Blackridge into her skin. Nora shivered that it wasn't gentle, it wasn't cruel, it was final. Rafe pulled back and turned toward the watching wolves. This Omega is under my protection, he said. She is bound to Blackridge by blood and oath. Any who touch her, he continued, voice sharpening, declare war. Silence. Then Dorian laughed, a low sound without humor. You think you can override fate with an oath? Dorian asked. Nora's stomach clenched. Rafe's expression didn't change. I think you mistake fate for entitlement, Rafe said. Dorian's eyes flashed. Call it what you want, he said. The bond will still eat her alive. Nora's chest tightened again. Dorian's words wormed under her skin, pain, weakening, breaking. Rafe's hand closed around Nora's wrist, grounding her. He didn't look at her yet. He kept his gaze on Dorian. Then we'll sever it, Rafe said. Dorian's smile sharpened. You can't. Rafe's voice stayed calm. Yes, he said. We can. Dorian's eyes narrowed. And how do you plan to do that? Kane. Rafe's gaze flicked to Nora's bleeding palm. Then back to Dorian. There's an old rite, Rafe said. A severing ritual. Rare. Dangerous. And it requires to alphas. Dorian stilled. Even the betas looked unsettled. Nora's breath caught. She stared at Rafe. He hadn't told her this part. Rafe's voice dropped. Your elders know it, he said. Mine know it. Every pack buries it because it's brutal. Dorian's eyes burned. And you think I would help you remove what's mine? Rafe's lips curved slightly. That's the point, he said. You don't help. You participate. Dorian's jaw tightened. Nora's pulse hammered. What does that mean? She whispered to Rafe. Rafe didn't look away from Dorian when he answered, but his voice softened just a fraction for her. It means, he said, you stop being hunted, and Dorian stops pretending he can reject you without consequence. Dorian took a slow step forward. His dominance hit the clearing like a wave, thick enough that Nora's vision blurred for a second. Rafe stepped forward too. Neither of them flinched. Dorian's gaze locked on Nora. You're really doing this, he said, throwing yourself to a rival out of spite. Nora's hands curled. It's not spite, she said, voice steady. It's freedom. For a heartbeat, something flickered in Dorian's eyes. Not guilt, not regret. Something darker, possession, an anger that possession could be denied. Then his expression turned cold again. You don't understand what you've started, Dorian said. Rafe's voice cut in, sharp. Oh, we understand, he said. We're just not afraid of it. Dorian looked at Rafe, then he smiled. Fine, he said. You want the right. You want to sever the bond. You want to pretend she can walk away clean. Dorian lifted his chin. Then we do it, he said. Nora's blood ran cold. Rafe didn't move. On one condition, Dorian added. Rafe's eyes narrowed. Name it. Dorian's smile widened. We do it on Greymore ground, Dorian said. In front of my elders. In front of my pack. So they can watch, he continued. How an amiga crawls back when the bond starts to bleed her dry. Nora's stomach twisted. Rafe's grip on her wrist tightened. Nora felt his anger. A contained, lethal thing. Rafe's voice came out calm. No, he said. Dorian's eyes flashed. Then she dies slowly, Dorian replied. The words landed like poison. Nora's breath hitched. Rafe went still. For a long moment, the clearing held its breath. Then Rafe's gaze dropped to Nora. The first time since the claim that he looked at her like this. Like the decision belonged to her again. You heard him, Rafe said quietly. If we don't do the right, he'll keep hunting. If we do the right, he continued, it will be dangerous. And he wants it on his ground. Nora swallowed. Is there another way? Rafe's jaw tightened. Not one that ends this clean. Nora's chest burned. She pictured Greymore again. The hall, the wedding, the whispers, Dorian turning away. And now this. Dorian trying to drag her back. Just to prove she couldn't escape, Nora lifted her chin. We don't do it on his ground, she said. Dorian's eyes narrowed. Rafe watched her. Nora's voice steadied. We do it on neutral ground, she said. At the old stone circle. Even the betas froze at that name. Dorian's expression flickered. The old stone circle was pack legend. A place where old rites had been performed before packs had borders. A place wolves avoided because the air there felt alive. Rafe's gaze sharpened. You know about it, he said to Nora. Nora swallowed. My mother used to whisper about it, she said. Before she died. Dorian's eyes darkened. Your mother was nothing, he snapped. Nora's wolf surged. Nora's voice cut sharp. My mother knew more than you. Silence. Rafe turned back to Dorian. Neutral ground, Rafe said. Stone circle. Dawn. Dorian stared at them both. Then he smiled. Slow and cruel. Fine, he said. Dawn. He backed away one step, but his eyes stayed on Nora. You'll come, he said. Like it was already decided. Nora met his gaze. We'll see, she replied. Dorian's smile sharpened at that. Then he turned. He signaled his betas. And they vanished into the forest, retreating like wolves who had already chosen the place of the next kill. Nora stood there shaking, not from cold, from the weight of what she had just agreed to. Rafe's hand remained on her wrist, steady. Stone circle, he murmured. That place bites. Nora swallowed. So do I, she said. Rafe's mouth curved, just slightly. Good, he replied. Then let's get you to Blackridge before Dawn tries to swallow us all. Chapter 6. The Stone Circle. They didn't stop running. Not really. Even when the forest grew quieter, and the air stopped carrying Greymore scent, Nora could still feel the hunt behind them, like pressure at the back of her skull, a certainty that Dorian wasn't done, just repositioning. Rafe led her hard and fast through terrain that punished hesitation, rocks, steep slopes, dense brush that tore at her sleeves. Nora didn't complain. Pain was familiar. What was new was the way her wolf stayed awake through it, alert and sharp, like it had finally accepted that survival meant teeth. Near dawn, the trees thinned. The land opened into a low, foggy stretch where the ground turned flat and cold, and every sound carried. Rafe slowed, finally. He lifted a hand, signaling silence. Nora stopped beside him, breathing hard. "What is this place?" she whispered. Rafe didn't answer right away. He stared forward, eyes narrowed. Then he spoke, voice low. "The border between old rules and new lies." Nora frowned, and then she saw it. The stones. Massive slabs of dark rock rising from the earth in a wide circle, uneven and ancient, carved with shallow markings that looked like claw lines and symbols worn down by time. Mist curled between them. The air smelled wrong. Not rotten, not dangerous like blood. Wrong like a storm about to break. Nora's throat tightened. "The stone circle," she whispered. Rafe looked at her. "You've been here before." Nora shook her head. "No. My mother talked about it." She swallowed. "She said it was where packs used to settle things before borders, before titles, before politics." Rafe's jaw tightened. "Your mother was right." Nora stared at the stones, feeling her skin prickle. "What happens here?" Rafe's voice stayed calm, but the muscles in his shoulders were tight. "Truth," he said. "And price." Nora's chest tightened. She touched her throat. The fresh mark still throbbing under her fingers. And under that, the rejected bond with Dorian pulsed like an infected wound, tugging at her instincts in ugly waves. It didn't want to let go, it wanted resolution, it wanted possession, it wanted to drag her back. Rafe's hand caught hers, grounding, warm, steady. "You're shaking," he said. Nora pulled in a breath. "I'm not scared." Rafe's eyes flicked to her, sharp. "That's a lie." Nora swallowed. Then quietly, she admitted it. "I'm scared of what happens if he's right." Rafe didn't pretend not to understand. He stepped closer, blocking her view of the stones for a moment. "Listen," he said. "The bond doesn't own you. It never did." Nora's jaw tightened. "Then why does it still hurt?" Rafe's gaze hardened. "Because it was awakened," he said, and then denied. "Denied bonds don't fade." He continued. "They fester." Nora's stomach twisted. Rafe held her gaze. "That's why we sever it." Nora's throat tightened. "And the price?" Rafe looked past her, toward the stones again. "Depends on what the bond is feeding on." Nora frowned. "What does that mean?" Rafe's voice dropped. "Some bonds are pure," he said. "Some are twisted by control, and some are anchored by secrets." Cold crept under Nora's skin. Then Rafe's head tilted. He listened for a heartbeat. Nora heard nothing. Then she heard it too. Footsteps. Not crashing, not running. Approaching with confidence. A scent rolled in on the wind, Graymoor. But not frantic now, deliberate. Dorian wanted them to know he was coming. Rafe released Nora's hand and stepped forward, placing himself between her and the tree line. "Stay inside the circle when they arrive," he murmured. Nora's pulse jumped. "Why?" Rafe didn't look at her. "Because the stones are neutral," he said. "No one can claim you here without paying for it." Nora swallowed. "And outside," Rafe's voice was flat. "Outside, they'll try." The fog shifted, figures appeared between the trees. First the betas, then Dorian. He stepped into the open with the calm of a man who believed the ending belonged to him. His eyes locked on Nora immediately, and the bond inside her jerked, sharp and vicious, like it recognized him and hated itself for it. Nora's hands trembled. Dorian's gaze swept down to her throat, to Rafe's mark. His expression tightened, then smoothed into something cold. "Dawn," Dorian said. He looked at the stone circle with mild disdain. "So dramatic." Rafe's voice cut in. "Step inside." Dorian's mouth curved. "You first." Rafe didn't blink. He walked forward and crossed into the circle without hesitation. Nora followed a step behind him. The moment her foot crossed the boundary, the air changed. Pressure. Like invisible hands pressing down. The hair on Nora's arms lifted. Even her wolf went silent. Not submissive, but watchful. Like it respected the place. Dorian paused at the edge. For the first time, he hesitated, not fear, calculation. Then he stepped in. The beta stayed outside, circling like wolves denied the kill. Inside the circle, the three of them stood under the weight of ancient stone and older rules. Dorian's gaze stayed on Nora. "You didn't sleep," he observed. Nora's voice came out sharper than she expected. "Neither did you." Dorian's mouth twitched. "You look marked," he said, temporary. Rafe's voice was cold. "It's blood and oath, it's law." Dorian's eyes flicked to Rafe. "And you think law beats destiny?" Rafe's expression didn't change. "I think destiny without consent is just another leash." Nora's breath caught at that. Dorian's gaze snapped back to Nora. "You're listening to him," Dorian said, as if it offended him. Nora lifted her chin. "I'm listening to the first person who didn't treat me like an object." For a moment, something dark flashed in Dorian's eyes. Not regret, anger, he inhaled slowly. Then he spoke, voice calm. "Fine," he said. "You want the severing right. You want to rip fate out of your chest." He stepped closer. The bond. Inside Nora flared, tugging, pulling, trying to force instinct over choice. Nora's knees threatened to buckle. She forced herself to stay upright. Dorian's voice lowered. "You're already paying," he murmured. Nora's jaw tightened. "Stop." Dorian's eyes narrowed. "You feel it," he said. "That pull, that ache, that sickness when you deny what you are." Nora's breath shook. She hated that he was right about the pain. She hated that he enjoyed saying it. Rafe stepped closer to Nora's side, a quiet shield. "Begin it," Rafe said. Dorian's gaze flicked to him. "You don't command me." Rafe's voice stayed flat. "No," he said. "But the circle does." Dorian's jaw flexed. Then he looked down at the stones beneath his feet. The markings carved into them, the old symbols. Old law. He exhaled once. And then, with controlled reluctance, he extended his hand. "Blood," Dorian said. Rafe didn't hesitate. He drew his knife, cut his palm. Dark blood welled. Nora's stomach turned. Dorian cut his own palm. Then slowly, he reached down and let the blood drip onto the stones. Rafe did the same. The circle seemed to drink it. The air thickened. Nora's skin prickled. The markings on the stones looked darker, sharper, as if they were waking up. Dorian's voice changed. Not louder, older, like he was speaking words he didn't want to know. "By stone," Dorian said. "By bone. By old law that predates crown and pack." Rafe continued the line without hesitation. "We call the bond to stand." Nora's chest tightened. The bond inside her flared in response. Violent and alive. Dorian's gaze locked on her. "Step forward," he said. Nora's stomach dropped. Rafe's hand brushed her back. Gentle pressure. A reminder, a choice. Nora swallowed and stepped forward into the center of the circle. The air pressed down harder. Her breath caught. Dorian's voice lowered. "Name yourself," he commanded. Nora lifted her chin. "I am Nora Hale," she said. The bond pulsed. Dorian's eyes burned. "Name what binds you," he said. Nora's voice shook once, then steadied. "The bond between me and Dorian Blackwell," she said. The words tasted bitter. The circle seemed to tighten around them. Dorian's voice turned sharp. "Name what you want." Nora's heart hammered. She looked at Rafe, then back at Dorian, and she spoke clearly. I want it severed. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then the air snapped. The bond inside Nora surged like a living thing being dragged into light. Pain ripped through her chest. Nora gasped, stumbling. Rafe caught her elbow, steadying her. Dorian didn't move, but his face tightened, just slightly. He felt it too. The circle was forcing the bond forward, dragging it out of shadow, making it visible. The air between Nora and Dorian seemed to shimmer, a thin, invisible line of pressure, a tether. And Nora realized with horror that it wasn't just instinct. It was something real, something anchored. Dorian's mouth curved faintly. You see it now, he murmured. Nora's breath shook. Rafe's voice cut in, harsh. Finish it. Dorian's gaze stayed on Nora. Not yet, he said. His eyes narrowed, and his voice dropped. Because the circle reveals what's hidden. Nora went still. What? Dorian's gaze sharpened. He looked at the mark on Nora's throat, then at her eyes. Then he said the words that made Nora's blood freeze. You're not just an amiga, Dorian said softly. You're the reason the bond woke at all. Nora's pulse stuttered. Rafe's body went still. What are you saying? Nora whispered. Dorian's smile turned thin. I'm saying, he replied, your mother lied to you. And the stones under Nora's feet felt like they shifted, like the circle itself leaned closer to listen. Chapter 7. What Your Mother Hid. The words didn't just land. They sank in. Nora's breath caught, sharp and shallow, and the tether between her and Dorian pulsed like a nerve exposed to cold air. The circle pressed down harder, as if it wanted truth the way hungry wolves wanted blood. Rafe's hand stayed at her elbow, steady, controlled. But Nora felt the tension in him, the shift in his posture, the way an alpha's patience turned into a blade. Choose your next words carefully, Rafe said to Dorian, voice low. Dorian didn't look away from Nora. His gaze was locked on her like he was studying a weakness in armor. You came here to sever it, Dorian said. But you can't cut a bond without exposing what it's tied to. Nora's throat tightened. What is it tied to? She demanded. Dorian's mouth curved faintly. Blood, he said. And lineage. Nora's stomach turned. Rafe's voice cut in. This is manipulation. Dorian's eyes flicked to him. Cold. No, he said. This is the part you don't know. He turned back to Nora. Nora Hale. He said quietly, your mother didn't die of sickness. Nora froze. Her chest tightened so hard she couldn't breathe for a second. Don't. Nora whispered. Dorian ignored it. She died because she tried to hide you, Dorian said. The bond surged, and Nora's vision blurred. A flash of memory, her mother's hands, the smell of herbs, a door shutting, a whisper. Nora's voice shook. She died when I was 12. Dorian nodded once. And by then, he said, Graymore already knew what you were. Rafe went still. Nora's blood ran cold. What I was. Nora repeated. Dorian stepped closer. Slow, deliberate. The tether between them tightened. Pain clawed across Nora's ribs like something trying to drag her toward him. Nora forced herself to stay upright. Dorian spoke like he was reciting a fact the pack elders had drilled into him. You're not an Amiga by blood, he said. You're an Amiga by designation. Nora stared at him in confusion. Burned hot. That doesn't make sense. Dorian's eyes narrowed. It does, he replied. In old law, rank wasn't just strength. It was ability. It was what you carried. And your mother carried something, Graymore. feared. Nora's heart slammed. Rafe's voice was tight. What did she carry? Dorian didn't answer Rafe. He answered Nora. A dormant bloodline, he said, rare, useful, dangerous. Nora swallowed. Her mouth went dry. What bloodline? Dorian's smile turned thin. You tell me, he said. Since your body reacts to stone circles and old rites like they were built for you. Nora's skin prickled, the air pressing down, the markings darkening. Her wolf going silent, not submissive, but listening. Dorian's voice lowered. Your mother wasn't just a pack female, he said. She was a keeper. Nora's stomach dropped. She'd heard that word once. In a bedtime story her mother used to whisper, as if it were a lullaby and a warning at the same time. Keepers, women who guarded ancient pack rites. Women who could bind or break with blood and voice. Legends, not real. Nora's throat tightened. That's a myth. Dorian's eyes held hers. No, he said. It's just buried. He looked down at the stones, at the blood soaking into them, then back to Nora. The circle recognizes you, he said. That's why it pulled the bond into the open. Nora's hands trembled. Rafe's hand tightened at her elbow. Grounding her, Nora forced the words out. If my mother was whatever you're saying, she whispered, why would Greymore make me an Omega? Dorian's gaze hardened. Because Omegas don't get asked questions, he said. Omegas don't get taught. Omegas don't get seen. The words hit like a slap. Because they were true. Dorian's voice stayed. Calm, brutal, double quotes, they kept you small. He continued. Because if you ever learned what you were, you'd stop belonging to them. Nora felt the ground tilt under her. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. Rafe's voice cut in, sharp. And you knew. Dorian finally looked at him. Yes, Dorian said. I knew. Rafe's jaw flexed, anger leaking through control. And you rejected her anyway, Rafe said. Dorian's gaze was cold. I rejected her publicly, he replied. Because she woke the bond too early. Nora's breath hitched. What? Dorian's eyes snapped back to her. I needed time, he said. Time to finish the alliance with Maris. Time to secure borders. Time to keep Greymore stable. And you, he added, voice lowering, you were inconvenient. The word made Nora's wolf snarl inside her. Rafe's sense spiked, dominance flaring. He stepped forward one pace, and the circle's pressure snapped like tension on a wire. Careful, Rafe said. Dorian's smile sharpened. You're angry because you think she's yours. Dorian said. But she isn't. Rafe's eyes flashed. She chose me. Dorian laughed softly. She chose escape. Dorian corrected. And you were the nearest door. Nora's voice cut through. Raw. Enough. Both alphas went still. Nora's chest burned. Her throat felt tight. Her palms were slick with sweat. She stared at Dorian. If you knew, Nora said, voice shaking. Why tell me now? Dorian's gaze didn't soften. Because you want the right, he said. And the right demands truth. He stepped closer again, and Nora felt the tether pull. Pain ripped through her ribs, and she gasped, stumbling a half step. Rafe caught her. Dorian watched, and his voice dropped. Also, he said, because I need you to understand what happens when we sever it. Nora swallowed. What happens? Dorian's expression turned serious for the first time. The bond isn't just between wolves, he said. It's anchored to what you carry. If we sever it, he continued, it will rip something open. Nora's breath shook. What? Dorian's eyes locked on hers. Your ability, he said. Your bloodline. The thing Greymore buried. Rafe's voice was flat. And you're saying this to scare her. Dorian's gaze flicked to him. I'm saying it, Dorian replied. Because if she breaks here, uncontrolled, this circle will amplify it. Nora's stomach turned. Break, she repeated. Dorian's voice lowered. Awaken, he corrected. Nora's hands trembled harder now. This was too much, her mother. A lie, her rank. A design. Her bond, la trap. She felt her wolf stir again, but not like fear. Like something deep inside her was waking up and stretching. Claws. Rafe leaned close to her ear. Look at me, he murmured. Nora forced her eyes to him. Rafe's voice was steady. He's not telling you this to help you, Rafe said. He's telling you because he thinks you'll run back to the only place you've ever known. Nora swallowed. Rafe's gaze held hers. You are not going back, he said. Nora's breath shook. Then she looked past Rafe, back at Dorian. If this rite awakens whatever you think I am, she said, voice steadier now, then we do it anyway. Dorian's eyes narrowed. Rafe's jaw tightened. Dorian spoke, slow and deliberate. Do you know what awakened keepers can do? He asked. Nora lifted her chin. No, she said. But I know what you did. Dorian's eyes flashed. Nora's voice cut sharper. You rejected me. You hunted me. You treated my life like a tool. So if something wakes, she said, maybe it should have woken a long time ago. Silence fell. Even the betas outside the circle went quiet, as if the forest itself understood that something had shifted. Dorian's gaze burned. He took a slow breath. Then he spoke. Voice older again. Then we finish it, he said. Rafe's hand tightened on Nora's elbow. Nora didn't flinch. Dorian looked down at the stones, then lifted his palm again. Blood still wet. By stone, he said. By bone? By old law. Rafe answered. Immediately. We sever what binds. Dorian's gaze locked on Nora. Step into the center, he commanded. Nora stepped forward. The pressure crushed down. Her breath caught. The tether between her and Dorian flared so bright in sensation it felt visible. Dorian's voice dropped. Sharp. Name the bond. Nora's voice shook once, then steadied. The bond between me and Dorian Blackwell. Dorian's jaw flexed. Name what you give. Nora frowned. What? Dorian's eyes burned. To sever a bond, he said. You trade something. Nora's blood turned cold. What do I trade? Dorian's smile returned, thin and cruel. That, he said softly, is the part your mother didn't live long enough to teach you. Rafe's sense spiked, anger turning sharp. What does she trade? Rafe demanded. Dorian's gaze flicked to him, then back to Nora. Choice? Dorian said. Memory. Blood. He paused, then he spoke the final option like a knife sliding in. Aura. Life. Nora's breath stopped. The circle seemed to tighten, and the tether between her and Dorian pulsed again, like it agreed. Chapter 8. The choice that breaks chains. Silence swallowed the stone circle. Not the silence of peace. The silence of something ancient holding its breath. Nora stood at the center, the tether between her and Dorian burning like a wire pulled to tight. Every heartbeat felt borrowed, every breath tasted metallic. Say it again, she said, voice rough. What do I trade? Dorian's gaze stayed locked on her. To break a destined bond, he said, Something of equal weight must be given. Rafe stepped forward, anger contained but sharp. You're not taking anything from her. Dorian looked at him for a heartbeat, then back to Nora, like Rafe was background noise. This isn't about you, Dorian said flatly. It never was. Nora's hands curled into fists. It is now. The stones hummed under her feet. Dorian spoke like he was reciting a law older than any crown. Keepers don't sever bonds without cost, he said. They redirect them, anchor them elsewhere, or destroy them entirely. And the price? Nora demanded. Dorian inhaled slowly. If you choose memory, he said, you lose everything you felt for me. Pain included, but also what the bond revealed. Rafe's jaw tightened. If you choose blood, Dorian continued, you lose your ability permanently. You become exactly what Greymore tried to make you. Nora's chest burned. And the last, she whispered. Dorian didn't hesitate. If you choose life, he said, the bond transfers its debt. Rafe's head snapped up. To whom? He demanded. Dorian's eyes stayed on Nora. To the one who awakened it. Cold understanding crashed into her. You? Nora said. Dorian inclined his head. If you choose that, he said, the bond dies by killing my claim to it. Rafe stepped between them instantly. No. Nora caught his arm. Rafe, she said softly. He looked at her, eyes fierce. I will not let you bargain with him. Nora met his gaze. Steady. I'm not bargaining, she said. I'm choosing. She turned to Dorian. You rejected me, Nora said. You hunted me. You used destiny like a leash. Dorian didn't deny it. So here's my choice, Nora continued, voice rising. Stronger now. I don't give up my memory. I don't give up my blood. She took one step forward, deeper into the center, where the pressure was strongest. And I don't trade another man's life for my freedom. Dorian's expression tightened. That's not. Nora lifted her chin. I choose myself. The circle answered. The stones didn't crack. They sang. The sound rose through Nora's bones, vibrating in her teeth, in her ribs, in the place where she'd carried humiliation for years like it was normal. The tether between her and Dorian flared. Pain tore across her chest, sharp and brutal, dragging every memory with it. Every moment the bond had touched her instincts and tried to convince her that belonging meant obedience. Nora gasped, knees threatening to buckle. Rafe moved closer, ready to catch her. But she stayed upright, because if she fell now, it would feel like crawling back. Dorian's eyes narrowed as he felt the shift in the air. What are you doing? He demanded. Nora's voice came out layered. Not louder, deeper, as if something old had woken inside her and recognized the language of stone. I'm not severing it, she said. I'm reclaiming it. Dorian's face changed. For the first time, uncertainty cracked the arrogance. That's impossible. Nora's mouth curved. Not sweet. Not kind. Greymore taught me I was small, she said. But they never taught me I was powerless. She lifted her bleeding palm, letting her blood drip onto the stones. Not as payment, as permission. The circle pulled the tether into the open, and this time Nora didn't flinch from it. She reached for it, not with hands, with will, with voice. With old law that predates pack and crown, Nora said clearly, I call this bond to stand. The air tightened. Dorian's breath hitched. Nora continued, each word steady. A bond without consent is not fate. It is theft. The tether jerked, trembling like something alive. Dorian took a half step forward instinctively, dominance flaring. Rafe's growl cut low, warning. Nora didn't look away from Dorian. You want to know what my mother hid? Nora said. She hid the truth that breaks men like you. Dorian's eyes burned. Nora spoke the final words like a verdict. I revoke it. The tether snapped. Not violently, cleanly, like a lock opening from the inside. The pressure in Nora's chest vanished so suddenly. She almost fell from relief alone. Her wolf surged, not trembling, not cowering, but standing up inside her, as if it had been waiting its whole life for this moment. Dorian staggered. A sharp breath tore out of him. He dropped to one knee, palm pressing to his chest like he could physically hold on to what he lost. No, he whispered. Nora stared at him, breathing hard, but free. You don't own destiny, she said. You don't own me. Dorian lifted his head, eyes wild. This isn't over. Nora's voice turned quiet. It is. Rafe stepped beside her, not in front, shoulder to shoulder. Dorian's gaze flicked to the mark on Nora's throat, to the blood oath on her palm, to the way she stood without flinching now. For the first time since the wedding, he looked at her and didn't see an amiga. He saw a threat, a force he couldn't command. The betas outside the circle shifted uneasily, sensing their alpha had lost something he couldn't replace. Dorian stood slowly, jaw tight. His eyes stayed on Nora. You'll regret this, he said. Nora didn't blink. No, she replied. I'll remember it. Dorian backed away a step, then another, as if the circle itself pushed him out. And when his heel crossed the boundary, the air around him lightened, like the stones had released their grip. He turned, signaling his wolves. They vanished into the mist and trees, retreating like hunters who had finally realized the prey could bite back. Nora exhaled, long and shaky. The forest sounded different now, not quiet, alive. Rafe's voice was low, steady. You did that, double quotes. Nora touched her chest, feeling the absence, no tug, no ache, no leash. I ended it, she said. Rafe's eyes held hers. You chose yourself. Nora nodded once. Then she turned away from the stones, away from Greymoor, away from Dorian, and she walked forward without looking back, because for the first time in her life, she wasn't running. She was leaving, on purpose.